Let's switch gears a little bit. Think about the one piece of advice that you received that you felt was most helpful in your life.
A piece of advice, huh? Well, I was in England at the time with a minister, and I was young in the knowledge of God and ministry, and but I wanted to minister. I wanted to be a part of the ministry and teach in front of people and tell people about the Lord and so on. But I didn't. I hadn't done any of that. And I was in his car, and we were driving to the airport. And he said to me, Bill, have you ever thought about being in the ministry? And I said, well, yeah, I've thought about it, but I said, I don't know whether I'm tuned to do that, or whether I can or not. I don't know. And he says, well, I think you are. He says, I believe you're called of God, and you have a ministry to give to people. Well, it struck me, and I was happy with the response, and so I began to think more of that and talk to God more about that. And it wasn't long after that God began to use me with what the Bible calls the word of wisdom and knowledge. Knowledge is knowing something before it's come to pass, and wisdom is just a word from God. So, unbeknownst to me, God is working that inside of me, and I'm always getting something for people, we might start up a conversation or something, and then all of a sudden this knowledge, this wisdom comes out of me towards them, and they say, yeah, that's right, or yeah, I didn't know that, and so it began to grow bigger and bigger. And I had started that home ministry, and so I found myself giving people a word from God more and more all the time, and it kept being right. So that was encouraging for me to continue doing it, of course. And of course, it has to be right, because if you're getting something from God, I can't just say whatever I want to say or do something I think would be good for you. I have to hear God say it first, and then I just repeat what He has said. Mm-hmm. And then obviously it always comes to pass if you're going to do that. And that's the way you should be doing it. You don't need to be taking the initiative yourself to say, well, I think this and we'll do that, Don't do it.
So it's listening to God and being obedient to His word, just saying what He says.
Without a doubt. Now, I mentioned to Nigel before that some of the things that God said to me that was a big surprise, and I ended up finally agreeing with God that I'll go ahead and say that, and
sounds like you were hesitating though, huh?
Yes,
for reasons?
Because sometimes when God tells you something, you think, oh my gosh, if this is not right, then everything is going to go bonkers.
It's going to go sour fast.
Yeah,
Huh?
exactly.
Well, I don't know if you remember, but you've given me words from God too during our relationship, and I've always appreciated them. And yes, indeed, they were right.
I use that gift when I baptize people. Mm-hmm. And when I was at the church as a Presbyterian, I was getting words from God because that God gave that gift to me. And I couldn't use it openly because they just didn't understand and they wouldn't believe. But sometimes when I think we were baptizing the children, I'd give a word and they never knew that I was getting it from God, you know.
You baptized me and you gave me a word from God.
Yeah.
And I wrote it down on my baptism certificate.
Right. Good.
It's important.
And that'll be there forever, and that should surely have come to pass already. But I know that your son came to me and said one time, you didn't give me a word, you know. And that's happened to me two or three times. One older fella in England said that to me. He said, I asked for a word, and I never got anything, and you didn't give me anything. And I said, well, no, you don't want to blame God for that. I said, that was probably just my fault. I probably didn't hear when he spoke to me. Mm-hmm. And that happens from time to time. You know, you don't think that you have something when you really do have something. Mm-hmm. And then the other person gets left off. Mm-hmm. That's no good. Mm-hmm. One of the times that really blessed me was I was in Australia, and the Lord had told me to lay hands on everybody. And I was going through the line doing that, and I came to this one person because I was at the back of them. And the Lord just said, Jesus loves you. So I said that, and I said to God, I said, God, what is that? Everybody knows that. You know, that don't mean nothing. That's not a word for anybody.
Sounds like you're sassing God.
Well, you do. You get to that place where you're talking back, you know, and that's not good to talk back to God. But I said to God, everybody knows that. That's nothing. I need something more than that. And I stayed there, and I never got anything more, so I moved on. But, you know, at the end of the meeting, an older woman came up to me, and she said, I want you to know that you really blessed my son with the word when you said Jesus loves you. He's retarded, and he couldn't receive anything any more than that. And that was such a blessing to me, because I challenged God over was that any good or not. And God does things like that to you, you know. He'll sneak up on you and give you a surprise every now and then. I think he enjoys that.
Well, I think about all the people that you've impacted by the gifts God has given you. And you've allowed God to use you in amazing ways to people that we know from Grace Presbyterian Church, people at your home meetings, friends, family, and you're leaving a legacy that's pretty amazing. How would you describe your legacy that you're leaving to your family, your children and grandchildren?
Well, it's just absolutely wonderful, because I tell God all the time, I really enjoy giving a word to people that you give me. And I don't know of anything that would be more pleasing to me than that. So I have had the perfect gift. And I am always surprised how you use it. Lots of times, I am driving down the street in my car, and the Lord begins to tell me something for my children about something that's going to come to pass and something they need to be concerned about. Not too long ago, my daughter, who is a young lady now, she was starting a business, and she had had a get-together with the police department up in where she was at that time, out of Florida, and the word that the Lord gave to me, He said, I want you to tell her that there's a gentleman in this meeting that you're at, that you are teaching, that's going to come to you, and he's going to tell you that he got a lot out of what you said, and that he wanted to recommend you to another person who would be able to use that. So I called my daughter. She was in gosh, I forgot the name of it, the middle of the United States. And I told her exactly that. And of course, she's used to me getting things, so it wasn't unusual for that. And sure enough, the next day she calls me on the phone and she says, hey, I think I met that guy that you were telling me about. And he said it was an old guy just like you said, and he said just exactly what you said he was going to say, and he was going to recommend me to someone else. So now you'd say to yourself, now what would God waste his time doing that? You know, why is God doing that? It's not some great big wonderful thing that it's just a simple thing. But what did that do? Well, first of all, that taught my daughter to keep on listening to God. He's talking, and he's involved in your world and in what you're doing. And of course, he's also talking to me with, hey, you know, I can talk to you even when you're driving your car down the road if I have something I want to tell you. And of course, I was obedient to pass it on and give it to the daughter.
What's your daughter's name?
Christina.
Christina. So that's one word that surely came to pass in no time at all, within 24 hours.
Yes.
What are some other things that God has told you about Christina?
Well, Christina was a special little girl for us also. And she came to the Lord early in her life. She was a little girl coming to the Lord. She just wanted everything that he had. And she wanted to be like Daddy. And I said, no, you want to be like Jesus. And her life has been good. She knows him and follows him, and she's married now and doesn't want to have any children, but that's been her life. She was a good girl for us, you know. I don't know. I can remember lots of little things that the Lord used her for, but that's been the wonderful part of my life. I have 5 kids, and they all know that I know the Lord, and they all know I hear from the Lord, and they're all anxious to get a word from the Lord.
Let's see.
You want to take a break?
Can I get a quick drink?